Everybody, good afternoon. My name is Dwight. I run a program called Courageous Kitchen. It's a charity where we do two things. We provide food aid as well as food education for marginalized children in Bangkok. So I'm like a lot of you, I like to eat. I love to talk about food. I'm always thinking about it, even now. In particular, I like to think about how can we use food to transform communities. So when I talk about food aid, I mean we're providing rice, we're providing other staples and stipends, as well as hygiene products to families in need. And we pair that in tandem with English lessons as well as cooking. To fund all of this, we provide cooking classes and street food tours to tourists, and we're proud to have hosted about 800 or so guests in the past 2 years, as well as about 50% of the funds that we spend as a charity are raised through this social enterprise. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the lessons I've learned as Courageous Kitchen has grown, and about how you can take some of these, you can copy them, you can make them your own, you can improve upon them, and we can start to change how we use food and how we think about food. So the first idea is that kitchens are classrooms, especially in the context of students who don't have regular access to education. We found that kitchens are great places to learn. So a lot of people will ask, like, oh, are you teaching the kids to be chefs? But not necessarily. Our first goal is to teach the kids to be confident, to be great leaders. We try to challenge them to excel both individually and also when they're working in groups. And we also know that the kids come from a community where nutrition is not great. A lot of the children go with their families to scavenge in the local market, or they're left home alone and need to turn on the gas, use knives, and do all these things to prepare food for their younger brothers and sisters while their parents are working or dealing with the babies. So we try to teach all these things. We try to teach nutrition. We try to teach food safety. And we want to share a different vision of the kitchen than what people might see on TV. Often when you see chefs or people on TV, it's always the angry chef, right? It's always some sort of contention or some sort of competitive nature about the kitchen. Or even when people talk in general about cooking, they all seem to associate it with a vocation. So we want the kitchen to be a safe place to fail, right? A safe place to fail is an easy place to learn. And to do that, we might have to stir-fry some egos before we get in the kitchen. We might have to sift out some pride before we actually begin to put on our aprons and start to work together and be on the same level. So you guys can't see the full slide, but basically the litmus test for how well we do this as a society is, one, how welcoming we are to people that are different than us, people that may be refugees, to people that may be brown, to people that may be weird or get nervous on stage. But not just having them around is enough. We also want to take a look at how well those labels that society gives them fall away once they're with us. Next is talking about cooking is a dirty job. And I don't mean just all the dishes that are left behind after you're finished cooking. I mean, actually, we have to get in the dirt, and we have to return as a society to this idea of where our food came from. Part of our disconnect from the kitchen is just a symptom of a larger disconnect that we have with land and growing our own food. So this is a lot like what my house looked like this morning, except maybe without the rain. We're teaching the kids how to grow in an urban environment, even growing on concrete or growing indoors, and teaching them the value of one, how to have access to some low-cost nutrition, but as well, we want them to learn to appreciate how much work it is, how much effort it takes, how much knowledge you need to grow your own food. A lot of times, especially if you only see the food in the market, we have this confusion between price and value, right? So if you're only buying your vegetables, you may see the price and you think, oh, this is cheap. This wasn't hard to do, right? But not everything cheap is without value, and that's something that we learn as we come back to the land and as we redeem our urban spaces for growing food. So this is a quote from Chef Noam. He's basically saying that we have to give credit to the people behind the scenes. We have to give credit to the farmers for the produce. We have to give credit to the foragers, people who go out into the forest and collect products that are then consumed by us later. And that basically to remind us that chefs are not the most important people, that the chefs actually can't do it without the people behind the scenes. Finally, I love to teach cooking because culinary skills don't depreciate. No matter where you are, no matter what your aspirations are in life, if you know how to cook, you can take that with you. That's regardless of whether you're a aspiring chef, aspiring CEO. I know we have some future engineers and dancers and everything in the crowd. This is a skill that you can use regardless of where you go. In general, we like to think of the kitchen as a microcosm of the bigger world. So in the same way that if you're in a neighborhood that you don't recognize in Bangkok and you become a little fearful, a lot of people who are not unfamiliar with the kitchen go into the kitchen and have that same reaction. And a lot of that we've learned through our own trauma, right? So for me in particular, I'll tell you about me. Even when I was very little, I always cutting myself with small knives. So the first thing I cut myself with was an X-Acto knife, and slit my finger pretty good. Even as an adult, paring knives always create a problem for me. And so when you're in the kitchen with chefs, it's quite embarrassing to be the one that cuts yourself. I remember cutting myself working with a chef from London, and he came back and he said, about 2 minutes later, he came back and says, "Are you still bleeding?" As in like, get over it, get yourself together, get rid of the blood, and get back to work. But if we don't learn, if we don't have these opportunities to recover, these opportunities to conquer our fears, then we start to look at the world differently. We look at the world fearfully instead of looking at it courageously. So you can't see the full quote, but it says, courage is what happens when your character overcomes your circumstance. So I want to challenge everybody today to be courageous, to get out and teach the youth, to feed your communities better, and to grow the future. Thank you very much.